Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the ULIN Consulting Podcast. Let's talk everyday equity at the justice table, from add-on to all-in, equity that inspires change. And of course, you all know I'm Anika Farrell, founder and CEO of ULIN Consulting and this podcast. And today, guess what? We are going to be talking about what does it really mean to lead inclusively. We must think about awareness not being enough. Equity requires action. And so I want us to talk about how leaders can bridge that gap. So here with us is Sherlonda Anderson Smith. She is a special education teacher at Everett Public Schools, and she has previously served as a special education administrator. So she has a wealth of knowledge about leadership. Sherlonda, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Welcome, welcome. I'm
I am
enjoying it.
Well, I'm great. And I appreciate you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me and my listeners as we think about our goals of helping leaders understand the difference between knowing about equity and actually leading with equity. And so we're going to get started. And so I would love to dive in and pick your brain because you have a wealth of knowledge. You've experienced various areas of education and leadership and growth in educators. And so I would love to understand and identify how you would contrast performative gestures with real leadership and action. What does that look like to you?
Well, it's understanding who are the people in your space, understanding, yourself and those around you as well. If we're talking about leadership as far as education is concerned, then we're looking at ensuring that not only do students get what they need, but also that it's successful, that it's utilized to close gaps. It's not what's fair, it's what's appropriate. It's not about, well, wait a minute, we don't want to do this because then this person doesn't have it. It's having the understanding and also the courage to have those difficult conversations in which we can say, yes, we may understand that it may not appear fair. However, fair isn't equitable.
That's so true. And yes, you definitely hit some very important points when we talk about equity versus equality. Yes, everyone getting the same thing is different than everyone getting what they need. And we know that from a student standpoint, but we also realize that from a leadership standpoint. When leaders are actually supporting their educators or supporting their staff in general, it's making sure, like you stated, that individuals are getting what they need equitably to be successful. And it's not just about giving everybody a pencil, but how do we give you the pencil that you need or the device that you need to be most successful in your work? And I know a lot of performative things that organizations may do, especially around diversity, equity, and inclusion work, is hiring a consultant, but then you don't have a budget to keep that work going. See, that's performative. And so then when we take a
Correct.
look at real leadership in action, guess what we're looking at? We've assigned a budget to it. We're thinking about that from a very complex place where we're ensuring that educators are getting what they need, staff are getting what they need, and it's not performative, but it is leadership with equity embedded in there. And again, as you stated with students, that is absolutely imperative in order for them to be successful in their day to day. Because when students are successful and educators are successful or staff is successful, everybody's successful. Would you agree?
Would agree. And it definitely transcends. When we talk about equity, when you think about a student, and from my background, I deal with students, I deal with other educators, but it can definitely transcend into corporate America. when you think about, you know, those workers or those staff members that may need accommodations. You know,
Mm.
maybe they do have, you know, ADHD that's diagnosed or maybe not even diagnosed, but you have so many different people that you are working with and meeting them where they are and then building upon that. And you are correct. Many people don't think that they need to invest in making sure that we're being equitable. You know, this is my workplace. So, you know, what do you mean I need to invest in equity? What do you mean I need a budget where, you know, I'm looking at professional development? Because that's something one of your consultants is definitely going to tell you you may want to invest in. You want to invest in some professional development that hopefully your consultant can actually do. You know, go in and then talk to your supervisors, talk to your managers. Because I can promise you, the microcosm of education, when you think about that, the classroom is literally just a small office space. It's, you know, you have a manager who will be your teacher. You have a supervisor. Maybe that teacher has, you know, some support staff. And then you have your students who would be, of course, your workers. Same thing. It's just done on a very larger scale when we start talking about corporate America. And
I
yes, it
love the
does need
way
to be
you,
equitable.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if I don't
Oh,
say it, I will forget it. I love the way you compare the classroom like its own little corporate office, its own little organization. You have educators working with our students who are like the managers and the supervisors. And then you have the students who are like those individuals who are staff members who need growth and development and support.
great.
And you said something else that was so instrumental in this conversation today. A lot of organizations don't think about the needs of their staff. You mentioned maybe your staff member has ADHD that's diagnosed or undiagnosed? Are you giving them what they need to be the best that they can be in those organizations? Is equity so embedded to where, like you said, go in and talk to your supervisor? But going back to some of our previous podcast segments, are you able to have and hold a place with your leadership that would allow you that comfortability to go in there and talk to them and really let them know what you need? So I love the way that you brought both of those things up and into this forefront, because those are important for both our students and fundamentally for as a foundation for our educators and other staff members who are needing those same kinds of support. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think also as we think about performative versus that really embedded in leadership, what are your thoughts about you ask staff for feedback on diversity, but then you don't act on it? And then, okay, so that's the performative part. We asked Sherlonda and we asked the staff, and you've been in leadership before. You run your educational space as a lead professional in special education. But then, how does a staff member really go from leadership being that performative, asking them for feedback, and then being able to be part of that decision making power? That's part of that leadership component that I think even within the realm of education, where your expertise has been and where you sit as a leader, when your staff that work with you in your classroom are saying, you're saying, share with me your feedback, and they share. You being able to involve them in that decision making power helps to take that to another leadership aspect. What are your thoughts about that, and how does that look in your organizational environment within your space?
So I think that it shouldn't be just asking them, but also asking for that next step. Okay, so if you're asking them, well, what are your thoughts about having an open door policy? And then it should also be open door policy, and then what would you do with that? And allowing them that opportunity to share and provide input. And then saying, hey, how do we collaborate so that we are taking your idea and your suggestion and we're putting it into practice. And the same thing happens in a classroom. Whereas when I speak to a student, or even when I speak to support staff about various things, I'll give an example. This past week, I was saying, hey, my classroom feels cluttered. It doesn't feel as like it is a workable space. And I asked my staff, my support staff, I was like, what do you think? How can we take this space and make it more user friendly? And a couple gave me different ideas. I'm like, okay, so how do we go about doing that? Let's sit down as a group and let's talk about how we put this into practice. And we were able to do that. We came up with a really good idea in regard to how we were going to put things in places, and then we did it. And then they asked, does this feel more usable for you? And I would ask the same question of them. And it's very similar, even if we are on a money market, or if we're in corporate America, if we are in an accounting firm, whatever it may be, if you are having thoughts, it's very possible that the people that are around you are having like thoughts and getting those thoughts together. And just because you are the leader, just because you may be the manager, it doesn't mean that your ideas have to be the only ideas that are facilitated. I would hope and trust that the people that you have hired, if you haven't hired them, or the people that you work with, you trust in the things that they say, ideas that they would have, because hopefully they wouldn't still have a job if you did, right? So, and in that case, let's get some of those ideas. A lot of my support staff are younger than I am, and they have these fresh brains, and it's like, oh, wow. And rather than just my 4 eyes that's looking at things, we want to add all of these other eyes. What do you see that I'm not seeing? So, and let's put this into practice. So, having the policies in place, getting feedback, but allowing collaboration so that it allows everybody to feel heard. And when you do that, then you also open up a space for further collaboration. Then your staff won't feel neglectful or regretful in being vulnerable or holding back. Now, understand, when you open those doors, you are opening that door, but you want those doors open. You want them to be vulnerable. You want them to be able to come to you in situations, be it positive and or, times of concern, even if it's with you, where they can come and you can have those difficult conversations and they know that they are being heard. And then when you're heard, you have those emotions and you feel as if you are a part of something that's greater than just, I'm a worker. Then I'm a part of a team. I'm a
Oh,
part
I
of this
love it.
group.
Oh, I love it. And you mentioned several things that were going to take me into my next thought with you. It's like, okay, you said bring them in, have conversations. What does this look like? And actionable practices in this work include modeling vulnerability. It
Yep.
includes shared decision making. It includes investment in the growth of your marginalized staff. And what I heard you say was so powerful, I think, for even our listeners, is because a lot of times in education support professionals, which are our paraprofessionals or other individuals who are working outside of that certificated realm, feel like they don't have a voice in the decision making. They're not able to be part of that conversation, and they don't a lot of times see other educators being vulnerable with them that would invite their voice and allow their choice. And you stated that they wouldn't be neglectful or regretful in those things, and that is huge when we're talking about education. And I think, as you pointed out, in any aspect of an organization. You can go in as a leader, and being able to be vulnerable with your staff is important because they want to know this person is normal just like me. They might have this title, but they are normal. I can talk to them, and they show their vulnerability. And you mention that. And then you bring the conversation and ask, not just ask, but then implement. What is it that you'd like to see done differently? You use, for example, your classroom. What would you like to see different? How could we change the space up? What could we do to support all of us? And then you do it. So you invested in their growth, you invested in their decisions. And that's part of all of cultivating a space where we just go from performative to true leadership. And that's exactly what I heard in what you shared.
Yes, absolutely. I know one of my largest, I don't want to say my largest wish or my largest ask, but one of the things that I am very prideful about, that I put a lot of pride into when someone walks into my room, my classroom, they should not know who the teacher of record is.
I
So
love that.
as a leader, yes. And same now, true enough, when you in corporate America, it may be a bit different. Only because usually your title is on the door, hopefully if you have an office. So they know who that is. But sharing that responsibility with others that have the capability in order to do so. And that's knowing your staff. Now, I'm not saying pushing your job off on someone else, but that, if you know that, say, one of your staff members or one of your other educators, they are to, they're looking for that growth. They're looking to move into a different position, and providing them that information, providing them with knowledge. So many times in all aspects of, if that's education or in corporate America, we're so keen on trying to hold on to our own. We're trying to hold on to our position. So no, we can't give any. We can't do these things because they're going to take my position. Rather than thinking about the overall, or thinking about the fact that, hey, if the company grows and I have already started to train this person who has this interest, I have already began to train them so that, yes, I need to move up because I'm definitely seeing growth for myself. I know who's going to slide into my position. To me, that's a powerful negotiating tool. I had one of my support staff had gone to school. They had finished up. I'm like, hey, we had a position that opened up in special ed, and I've been training this person for months. They did not interview well. So it was very, there was definitely that, the little nudge in the back of your head where, wait a minute, hold up. Do we really want to take this, and we really want to walk on ledge because they did not interview well? And you do have many people that don't. It doesn't mitigate the fact that they may be truly valuable employees. And so when I spoke with our leadership after her interview, and they were like, you know what, Smith, they didn't interview very well, so we don't know. And taking on, I'm like, well, I have been training this person since they've been under me. I think they will be a valuable asset to our culture as well as our school. And I will continue to be their go-to. I will continue to train. I will continue to, you know, to be the person that they can rely on in regard to, things that they have to do and so on and so forth. So I will continue to mentor. When they hired this person, they're now in their second year and they have done a phenomenal job. Absolutely phenomenal. Excellent hire. How yet had I been someone who was, oh, wait a minute, they didn't interview well. We bring in all these people in. What's going to happen with my position? Then that's a person that the school or any organization, the company could have lost out on, because if they've gone somewhere else, that means somebody else just got an excellent employee.
You're right. You're right. And what I love about what you said were two things. You were consulted. Hey, I don't think this is going to be a good hire. But you knew what you had saw in them through their work, through their commitment, through their efforts, that was absolutely not a not good hire. It was a good hire that you knew that, yes, maybe that person did not interview well, but they were still capable of the essential functions of their job and could excel in that. And that was where you, as a leader, saw something in them that you began to invest in the growth of that marginalized staff member. And that's where your sponsorship came in. Your sponsorship then went from being a sponsor to being a continued mentor and coach. Let me mentor you through this process. Let me coach you through maybe some of the things that you might have questions about that I can help fundamentally support you on. So those kind of things are huge when we talk about going from performative leadership to the type of leadership that we are talking about here. Leadership with equity embedded into the fabric of that leader. And that would be exemplary of you and the type of leader that you have been. I know when we first met, you were talking to me about, oh, giving your support staff, an opportunity to come and have dinner with you, to come and break bread, and just to still be. And I even had an opportunity to meet some of your support staff, and they are still your friends. So again, going from performative actions to true leadership where equity is embedded. And I'm not saying that everybody is going to break bread together or who's going to continue to be friends, but when you are a leader that people have grown to appreciate, love, and support, because not just that you're telling them this is what you did wrong or this is what you need to improve on, but one to where you have supported them in their growth and you've been a sponsor in that process. That is what a leader does. A leader advocates for their marginalized staff. That's what you did. A leader supports them in ways that it ensures their promotions and their raises. That's what you did. And you continue to commit to that even after that person was accelerated on. And you didn't try to hold them back. You didn't try to, keep the door closed because only you can be in certain positions and others can't grow. And that, again, is where performative versus true leadership, where equity is embedded, is absolutely so imperative. So before we kind of wrap up, I want to ask you, is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners that I haven't asked you already?
You know, so many people do not truly understand the work when we talk about being equitable and having an equity focus, that it's not just about those of us that may be from, you know, marginalized groups. It's for everyone. However, many that are not a part of a marginalized group, they already have, in many instances, they already have so many different advantages. Whereas, yes, everybody requires an equitable chance, everybody requires an equitable opportunity. And think about those people who don't have those advantages, who don't have those privileges, that may just need a little extra. And a lot of times, if you just allow people to shine, they'll show you a whole new world. That's it.
Well, Shalonda, thank you so much. I appreciate your insight and just bringing up points that I was going to touch on anyway, but you actually hit them before I actually had a chance to even ask them. So that makes it even better. But I want us to think about, as we listen to Shalonda and we listen to her examples, this is not just for educators. This is also information that can transcend into actionable steps, actionable thoughts for private organizations. When we think about the conversations that we have, these conversations are interchangeable. And so, one thing that I want you to take away is to pick as a leader one action this week that will move you from an awareness action, whether that's amplifying an underrepresented voice or changing a policy or inviting people to the table and then taking action, to another type of actionable leadership, something you can do this week. And I want you to just start with one. Because a lot of times, as we assess self and as we think about the things that we're doing, we want to think about all these things. But I'm just asking you to think about one. And again, think about how you can help support others who are not in leadership positions, where you as a leader go from a performative leader to someone who has leadership qualities embedded into what they do, just like Shalonda mentioned today, inviting their staff to speak up, share their thoughts, and then actually implement what it is that's being suggested. And not just say, hey, I want you at the table, but make them part of the table. And so, as we close, remember, inclusive leadership is action. Equity is how we thrive and embed it. Accountability is love in action. So ask yourself, how will you know equity is happening? And how will we stay honest when it's not? Shalonda, thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here with me today. Thank you, listeners, and be staying tuned next week for another episode of this amazing podcast. Thank you so much, and have a good day.